And we're back, ladies and gentlemen, live on the Philippe Matthews Show. Thank you for tuning in wherever you are around the world. I am so damn excited today. You have no idea. I have been asking the question for quite some time. Are there attorneys that can teach young melanated boys and girls how to stay alive, what to do when they are encountered by the police? And how do they, what do they say? Every time we see something on television, we see us being quite upset, overreactive, over-responsive, and in our minds, rightfully so. But what I realized is that can get us killed. And then usually it is what gets us killed. So I reached out and I found Keith Staten. Keith Staten is, oh my gosh, this guy is, he's the dude, ladies and gentlemen. He is a criminal defense attorney, first of all, the top guy in California. Law offices of Keith Staten and Associates. He specializes in handling complex litigation, DUI litigation, administrative licensing issues. And after serving at the Sacramento County's Public Defender's Office from 91 to 94, he started his private practice and concentrating on criminal defense. And what he did recently is he started this movement that's here in California, but is sweeping across the country. And that is Know Your Rights. This cat goes out and he teaches you and me and your children how to speak to the police, what to say, how to come home alive, and how to be, if you will, beat the system. And he claims that Eric Gardner, Sandra Bland, Mike Brown, Walter Smith, all of these people could have been alive if they had have said this one statement. We're going to teach you that statement in a moment. But with all of that being said, everybody, Keith Staten, what's happening, my brother?
How you doing, everyone? How you doing?
Good, man. Look, Know Your Rights. This is the brochure. Dude, you have changed my life. I swear to God. When we had lunch, it was, I think was it 4 hours?
About 3.
It was about 3
Definitely
hours.
3.
It was crazy, wasn't it? I was like, I'm not even trying, like we dating or something like this. What the hell? I don't need to spend this much time with a dude. What the hell is this?
we almost closed the place down.
Conversation, man, because it all started with, when we talked on the phone, it all started with you telling me that there is something that we are supposed to say, something that we're supposed to do. And by the way, ladies and gentlemen, legally, we can't give you legal advice, but we can give you legal education because this man is an attorney. Had to put that caveat out there because there's going to be some people that are going to be like, you know, tripping. You told me that there are, I think it's 5 words or something to that effect, that no matter what happens, if a police officer pulls you over or asks you to come over here, you get to say that and repeat it again and again. Talk to, and you're talking about the 4th Amendment. Talk to us about this and why this is so important, and why don't we know about this?
Well, let me start with by explaining that what I say and what I talk about is well known in the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution of the United States has certain amendments. The 4th Amendment governs that citizens should be free from unreasonable searches and seizures. Okay. So what that means is that when they were signing the Constitution, they didn't have us in mind as being under it until the 13th and 14th Amendments were passed. But before that, we had the 2nd, the 1st, the 4th, 5th, and 6th Amendments, which every citizen is entitled to exercise. Now, that being said, whether you are encountering the police in your home, on the street, in your car, or any particular place where you did not call them, then what you should say to officers are 5 words. Am I free to leave? When you say that, what you are doing is invoking your 4th Amendment right. And when I say invoke, I mean you are now exercising that right, because an officer has to determine whether or not you are free to leave. If you ask that question as the first thing out of your mouth and they tell you yes, then you keep moving, you keep walking, you keep doing what you're doing because you're not under any reasonable suspicion of a crime or any probable cause to be spoken to.
Let's walk through that because that's powerful. But I know all of the people listening right now are like, wait a minute, it can't be that damn simple. What happens if the police officer starts to get aggressive because you do know your rights and he's upset or she's upset that you are invoking your rights? And is it, we've walked away from the police before and it usually isn't good for us. And so you're saying you can say these 5 things and 5 words. And then if the police officer says, yes, you're free to go, then I can walk away. Walk us through
how this works.
That scenario and how does that work, the intricacies of that, please.
What we've got to know is we've hired police officers to do a job. And their part of their job is to investigate crimes, investigate people, to do get animals out of a tree, get people out of a sewer, whatever it is, we've hired them to do a job. Therefore, when they encounter us as citizens, it is generally seen as a consensual contact. You are consenting to talk to them. They are wanting to talk to you. If you talk to the police, that's a consensual contact. The only way to convert it into anything else is by saying, am I free to leave? Because the 4th Amendment requires you to be detained before your rights kick in. You are not detained until an officer says you are not free to leave. And if he says you are not free to leave, he must then, under the law, have a reasonable suspicion to detain you. So the reason why it works is because it doesn't matter if I'm walking down the street. For example, you're walking down the street and I drive up next to you. This is sort of the Brown situation. And I holler out the car, hey, stop. Now, if you ran away, if you cussed me out, if you did anything but stop, the officer now may have some reasonable cause to pursue you.
Wow.
And then it goes downhill from there. So if your first words are, am I free to leave? Now the officer's got to huddle up. And what I mean by that is they now better have some reasonable suspicion to detain you, meaning they have some description that you fit. They have someone saying that you just did something. They're looking for someone that looks like you, something, whatever is in their mind, and that's fine. That's what we pay them to do.
They have to validate and justify it as a result of you saying, am I free to leave?
Exactly. Now, what will happen in reality is, am I free to leave? And the officer says, no, I just pulled you over. No, I think you're a suspect. No, you're not free to leave. That's what you're listening for, because it's at that particular time that under the 4th Amendment, you are now detained. And when you are detained, you must give your license, show them, tell them, give them your ID. And the next thing out of your mouth, if they want to continue to talk to you, is, I want my lawyer present before I speak to you. Now,
wow. Okay, wait. This is great. I'm loving this. Right. Okay, so let's go back for a moment and let's do a little role play here.
Got it.
And so I'm the police officer, and you are, to my detriment, Keith Staten. But you are one who knows your rights. So right. Hey man, come here.
Officer, am I free to leave?
Hey man, I just want to talk to you for a minute.
I understand, but am I free to leave?
Look, I'm just talking. All we're doing is talking. I just want to talk to you.
Am I free to leave?
See, that's what I want to know. What you just demonstrated is how to save a life, because they're going to try to intimidate you. They're going to be, some of them are going to be very angry that you have asked that question in that way, because as a result of you asking that question, am I free to leave? They know that you know.
They know that I have to now justify or have a justification for contacting you. It's not a consensual contact anymore. Any consensual contact, your rights are not being violated. If in that same situation, and we can run it again and watch how I respond this time to your questions, okay? And notice the difference that the 4th Amendment never kicks in. So let's try it again real quick.
Okay, all right. Hey, come here for a second.
What you want?
I want to talk to you.
Why you want to talk to me?
You see? That's it. That's the nuance, Keith.
Why you messing with me? Why you got a problem with me? Who you looking for? Why I got a problem with
you need to calm. You need to calm down.
I am calm, but I don't like you messing with me.
But you need to calm down.
Well, I am calm.
Okay.
Don't put your hands on me. Get away from me.
There you go. There it is.
There it is. It just escalates.
There it is. This is very, very powerful, Keith. I just want you to know this is, I don't know anybody that has done this. This is incredible. I'm so honored that you're with me doing this today, because I think this is going to save some lives. I really do.
Let me just caveat this.
Please.
A lot of people say, well, I don't know if I am able to behave that way, right? Now, you are. You just have to remember to stay calm and repeat the command over and over again. Because the officers, you got to know, they know the law. Right. So what their response would be, if you're saying that am I free to leave? And they continue to badger you, continue to try to interrupt you, to get at you, you just have to keep repeating the statement until they give you a yes or a no.
Okay.
Now, when I say huddle up, what the officers got to do is they got to go, once they say, no, you're not free to leave, you are legally detained under the Fourth Amendment. Whether you like it or not, whether you agree with it or not, you're detained. And when you are, you have to exercise your next right, which is the Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. Because once you're detained, they got you cuffed and sitting on the sidewalk. They're doing an investigation. You don't know why. You don't need to know why. You need to focus on exercising your rights at that particular time.
You need to shut the hell up, is what you're saying.
Shut the hell up. That is what the best policy is. And understand, this goes for white, black, Mexican, brown, whatever you want to call yourself, ethnicity, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Whether you got money, no money, this all applies to you because it is your right under the Constitution.
Wow. Now let's go back, because I want to get into, I like the nuances and the details of this. Okay. So one of the things that people are thinking, and I would as well, oh damn, I don't have time for this.
Right.
Let me just give them what they want so they can leave me alone.
Now the problem with that is you don't know what they want.
Right.
You have no idea why they're stopping you, or guess what? You do know why, because you got a pound of cocaine in your pocket.
Okay.
And they saw you buy it. So you do know why they're stopping you. But in either case, innocent, guilty, it doesn't matter. Because
it was a half pound, by the way, Keith. No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
Well, that's better. But in any case, even if it's nothing, in any case, the key is you're exercising your rights. And by doing so, you have now put them in a position where they must justify their action. Now, if they have probable cause, and let's go back to the Brown situation, okay? So he's walking along, and the cops tell him, stop. Now, when he starts arguing and not saying, am I free to leave, there's a problem, right? And we see how that situation will end. But when he says, am I free to leave, the officer might say, no, I think we saw you on a video. Somebody said you just robbed the liquor store down the street, man. And that's why your next response is, well, then I'm not saying anything until my lawyer gets here. Because number one, you don't fight.
Now, wait a minute. Hold on. Oh. You're saying that even before I'm just going to use myself as a, before I am detained and go to the police station, before I'm arrested, I have the right to say that I'm not saying anything until my attorney arrives. Exactly. At that moment, at that time?
Yes, you do. And here's why you do that. Here's why you do it. You give them your ID. You say, here's who I am.
Okay.
And that's your only responsibility. Give them your ID. Identify yourself. Okay. The reason you say that is because just like the Fourth Amendment, your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent does not come into effect until you assert it. You have to assert it. For example, a lot of people say, well, they didn't read me my rights when they grabbed me or anything like that. They don't have to read you your rights. When we think about historical, the Miranda decision, what Miranda said was an officer must have you in custody, number one, and then begin to interrogate you before they have to read you your right to remain silent. Now think about what they're reading you. They're telling you you can remain silent, and you probably should until a lawyer comes.
Wow.
So all you're doing is jumping the gun. They've already detained you because they told you you're not free to leave. So now you are in custody. So what's the next thing to happen? They're going to talk to you. That's interrogation. Therefore, you nip it in the bud and you ask to speak to your lawyer, because when you ask to speak to your lawyer, everything stops in terms of interrogation. They can't talk to you anymore. And this is that situation where, and I'll tell you, case law says officers can ask you over and over again, you want to talk to me? They can come back later. You want to talk to me? You should always assert your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent. And this goes back to, if I'm sitting in a room and they come in the room 2 or 3 times and ask me, do I want to say something? Throw things down? You should look at the camera in the corner and tell them I've told, and responding in that way. But
Okay,
really, you only got to say that
right
once.
there, Keith. Keith, you froze right there, so we had a little technical glitch. Say that again. We look into the camera if we're detained in the police office at the police station,
in the interrogation room, and we assert our rights by saying, I want my lawyer present.
I want my lawyer
present. That's all
present.
you got to say.
Okay. Wow, this is powerful. So, all right. So let's walk through the scenario again, Keith. All right.
Yeah.
I get pulled over, or the cop comes up. I want to talk to you. Am I free to leave?
Right.
Then they have to figure out something, and this, they might do the good cop, bad cop thing. Hey, I just want to talk to you. Can I ask you a question? Can I ask you a question? Am I free to leave?
Right.
And you continue to do that. Now, of course, that's going to probably, well, I'm not going to say that's going to probably piss them off. Some probably won't, because we got to say all cops aren't bad. All cops are.
That's right.
Let's just kind of look at it when we're talking about cop. In where I come from, in Chicago South Side, yeah, they're going to be pissed about that. So, yeah, they are. I keep asking that question. And so then let's say that I am, it doesn't really matter if I'm guilty or not guilty, if I have something or don't have something.
Right.
If what we have to do, and what I'm hearing from you, is that we have to become comfortable and okay and calm with the possibility of being detained. Because I think in our mind, we think that one, being detained is, of course, it is demeaning. It's an inconvenience. Could kill our time. Look at what happened with Sandra Bland. And so all of that is going through our mind. And so we basically start to get aggressive, assertive, passionate. No, I don't want to be detained. No, why? And then all of a sudden we could end up dead. You're saying that by invoking this Fourth Amendment, and if you are, God forbid, detained, that you have 2 powerful amendments, the Fourth and the Fifth, that can literally save not just your life, but it can also save the time of your life. Because right now we're just talking about a minor inconvenience that might even go for 3 days. Like if they could pick you up on Friday, you might not get out till Monday morning or something like that. Well, that's not a big deal compared to if you talk and say something and give them something that they can use against you, that you then have a sentence for 10, 20 years or what have you. Walk us through the inconvenience of being detained, and why we should wait for our attorney, especially if we might not be able, if in our mind we're saying, I can't afford an attorney, I don't have an attorney. Why is this important to do for our rights?
Perfect. All right. When we first talk about being detained, realize that if an officer has asked you to stop, if an officer has pulled you over in his car, they are intending to detain you, whether you like it or not. Okay? Oh, really? Now that's a fact, right?
Okay.
So the cop pulls me over. So he comes to my window and I have to ask him, hey, am I free to go? Well, he's going to tell me, well, of course not. You ran a red light. You were speeding, right? Then You give them your license, your registration, and you have nothing else to say. The problem becomes that a lot of times officers aren't going to tell you anything when they come to the window. Or they're going to lie to you. Or they're going to say, hey, what have you been drinking? What have you been smoking? Are you on probation? Are you on parole? Their first question may not be why they pulled you over or why they asked you to stop. They're definitely not going to tell you that. So all you're doing is laying the groundwork for this whole entire conversation by saying, am I free to go?
So the moment you roll down that window and the cop comes over, those are the first words out of your mouth.
First words. Or it could be hello, hi, but you know.
So you can be cordial.
Oh yes, and I would suggest that you are.
Okay.
Hello, officer. And the officer may say, well, you know what? Something smells funny, or who are you? Or get out the car. They may say anything to you. I have no idea.
Are you supposed to get out of the car?
If they order you to, you get out of the car. But as you are getting out, am I free to leave? Mm-hmm. Am I free to leave? You see, you have to establish that, because, and even if the officer doesn't respond, you see, and this is the key, because the officer is probably not going to respond except by saying, get out the car, and grabbing you, cuffing you, or doing something, right? Now, it's obvious you're not free to leave, you see? So the next words out of your mouth is, well, I'm not saying anything till my lawyer gets here. Now, we were talking about that, because here's the way it should work. Officer, am I free to leave? Well, no, I want to give you a ticket. Oh, well, here's my license, registration. He writes the ticket. I go about my way. I'm walking down the street. Officer, am I free to leave? No, I think you were involved in a bank robbery or something. Or no, I just want to know, hey, do you know how to get to whatever street? You see what I'm saying? If they ask something innocuous like that, oh, when you go down here, you do this, you see? And it's done, right? But if it's not, which it usually isn't, by saying, am I free to leave, it then shifts the burden, so to speak, on them to justify why they are contacting you. You are to be free from such unreasonable actions. So when you're in that position and they are telling you, no, you're not free to leave, are you crazy? Then, oh, well, then I don't have anything to say until my lawyer gets here. But here's my ID.
What about searching you or searching your car or vehicle?
Well, what they're going to do, if they do that and you're standing there, that's why you say, am I free to leave? No. We want to search your car. No, you have no permission to search my car, and I have nothing to say till my lawyer gets here. Now, you talked about the lawyer. Look, reality is, what's special about those words is that they're magical words in the Fifth Amendment. They are literally magic. What I mean by that is, once you utter those words, the officer cannot then continue to question you. You are telling the officer, don't question me. Remember we talked about the Miranda rights? That people say they didn't read me my rights? Well, the rights only say, if you choose to speak to me, a lawyer can be present and while you're being questioned. So all you're doing is choosing the route of the lawyer. That's it. Now, will one fly into the room? No. And here's where I'm addressing your convenience thing. If an officer was going to pull you over and take you in, they were going to do it no matter what you said. All you're doing is exercising your rights for me, your criminal defense lawyer, or any lawyer later on down the line when it comes to dealing with your case. So you say you want a lawyer, right? And the officer says, I'm not getting you a lawyer. That's fine. You take the hit. They got to arrest you. But when it comes time to fight that case, if they had no cause to arrest you, that's something your lawyer is going to use. So you're not going to get a lawyer right away. In fact, they're not going to call you one. They're not going to bring you one. Don't be stupid to think that, one's going to fly in. But what you're doing is protecting yourself from saying something that could be incriminating, and you don't know what it is. And here's the real problem. Am I free to leave? No, right? And then you forget the second part, and you start saying, well, then what are you pulling me over for? Why are you messing with me? And then they say, well, we think you might have done this. I didn't do that. That was somebody else who did that. Why you think I did it? I was only down here. Or they get really slick with you and they say, you know what? I'm just wondering, could you possibly have been to that liquor store down the street?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you were at the liquor store, but guess what? Just like in the movie My Cousin Vinny, 2 minutes after you went to the liquor store, somebody looked like you went in there and robbed it.
Mm-hmm.
And now they're thinking it's you. And so they're coming at you and you don't know, and you're telling them, yeah, I was at the liquor store, sure. And the clerk looks like this, the place looks like that. So now they got you at the scene of the crime. Now they take you back and the person goes, that looked like the guy. Now you just bought yourself a robbery charge through your own mouth. Wow. If you had said nothing, they have to prove you were at the liquor store. They have to go get video, and it could have been anybody. So going back to the Brown situation, if that's what they truly knew, is that he was in a liquor store, they don't know whether he robbed it. They just know this was a guy, his clothing matches or something, a description of a person who walked out of this liquor store. By you talking without and not exercising your right to remain silent, you have now harmed your own case by making admissions that put you at the scene of a crime.
Wow, that's huge.
Now that can hurt. That can hurt. And all that means is now you're fighting a case, you see, probably all the way to the end to a jury. Right.
You were swimming uphill.
Trying to prove you're not that person.
Right, right.
When really, if you had shut up, me as the lawyer coming in goes, wait a minute, did they have cause to detain you? And then maybe they did, because I'll see that they had the description. You see what I mean? It looked like this person. Okay, I understand that. But my client remained silent. So they don't have a statement from my client saying, yeah, I was at the liquor store. Yeah, I went inside. You see, where somebody is saying somebody just like you went inside and robbed the place, because you don't know the facts of the event. What you don't know will hurt you. Therefore, you exercise your Fifth Amendment right to remain silent to protect yourself from it being used against you. One of the greatest pieces of evidence, and any criminal lawyer will tell you, the best piece of evidence is an admission. I did it. I was there. I was there, but I didn't mean for the guy to die. See, stuff like that. They're going to use that all day against you. And that's why you exercise your Fifth Amendment. Because once you say those words of, I want my lawyer, they have to stop questioning you. So they can't even
play. You know, we see them. Now, here's the thing, Keith. You know, we are conditioned and proselytized by all of these television shows. We're watching all of these law shows and all of this, and we think that we know the law when we watch these shows. Talk to us about how these law shows have probably helped get a lot of people locked up.
Because on the shows, they don't explain the importance of the Fourth and Fifth Amendment. What they're showing you is how a person shouldn't respond. There is, and this applies, believe me, a lot of criticism comes because well, if you're innocent, you should just tell them. But that's not necessarily true, because the innocent people sitting in federal and state prison throughout our country will tell you, I tried to tell them and it ended me up in prison. You see, if you had said nothing at all, they may not have had even that against you, because they will use your statements against you. You're protecting yourself against something you don't know is out there. You see, you don't know what they know. And so to protect yourself, you remain silent. If I need you to testify later, if you have to make a statement later, you can always make a statement later.
What about these things where they call you and say you need to come down to the station
Exactly.
and talk? How does that work?
Now, we're back to consent. You see, is this a consensual encounter? Well, obviously it is. Hey, why don't you come on down? We want to talk to you. What's it about? Well, you know, we're investigating some crime and your name came up, right? That'd be all right. Well, now if I go down and I sit into the room, right? The first thing the officers are going to tell me is, hey, you're not under arrest. You see, we just want to talk to you. Now, you can ask the same question. Am I free to leave? And they'll say, yeah, you're free to leave. We don't have you detained. You see what I mean? So if you feel uncomfortable at that moment, am I free to leave? Walk out. More likely than not, though, when you say, am I free to leave? They're going to say, no, we've got you down here for questioning. You're not free to leave. Once that happens, you are now officially detained.
Okay.
And they better have a reason for it more than somebody just said something.
Mm-hmm. And that's when you say, I would like to have the right to my attorney.
There you go. Now they get nothing out of you.
Okay.
You haven't incriminated yourself.
Okay.
You haven't given
but
them
I just
something.
called you down. You just agreed to come down for questioning. I would like the right to my attorney.
There you go.
Okay.
And you've got to do that because you don't know what they know.
Mm-hmm.
They'll sit there, look, and what you see on these shows, this is the worst part. The cops will say, I got pictures, I got prints, we got DNA of you at the scene.
Mm-hmm.
Now notice, it went too far for them to even say such things to me. If I say I want my lawyer, they can't even badger me with that stuff.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's the importance of exercising it right away so that those questions don't come out. They know we're curious about everything. They know we're emotional people. You know, if I say, yeah, but Felipe, I got 2 people and pictures and video shows me you were at the liquor store.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going, oh, well, they're wrong. Who are these people? They love that part because they know now you're interested.
Mm-hmm.
And they'll say, well, here the pictures are right here. I got them right here. I ain't going to show you, but I got them right here. And then your next thing might be, okay, I was there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, but I didn't do the shooting, but I didn't do this. Not knowing that just being an aider and abetter, you can go down just like the person.
Mm-hmm.
That's why you shut the hell up. It does you no good.
You caught yourself. I know what you're going to say.
Well, look.
But no, this is real stuff.
Yeah.
This is real stuff. This is real life. So let's go through some scenarios, Keith, because of the high-profile cases that have made
correct
national and international news. Because people say, okay, there was a difference between what happened with Sandra Bland and how she was pulled over versus Freddie Gray versus Mike Brown versus Eric Gardner. We're just using them as examples. There's unfortunately thousands that this happens to, but let's look at Eric Gardner.
Correct.
He is selling, I don't even know what he was doing.
Loosies, apparently.
Selling loosies or whatever, loose cigarettes or whatever.
Yeah.
Walk us through that scenario of how he could have saved his life.
Okay. And first thing I want to say about Eric Gardner is one of the things that I talk about in a lot of my speeches and what I teach people is the historical perspective of history. Because if you don't know history, then you have a tendency to screw up in the present and definitely in the future. So historically, when we think of Eric Gardner, what I go back to is the movie Do the Right Thing by Spike Lee. And what occurred to Radio Raheem in the very end.
Yes.
Now, there's a riot going on. We see Radio Raheem actually pretty much starts this whole thing. But by the time the cops come, they don't know that. They just see a very large black man, and they immediately try to use the same chokehold on him that they used for Gardner. New York City police officers, 35 years later, the exact same chokehold. Okay? So Eric Gardner's standing there. Someone says this guy's selling loosies, or a cop sees him selling loosies. And there may be a city code that says you ain't supposed to sell loose cigarettes, right? All right. So they've got what? Probable cause, reasonable suspicion he's committing a crime before they even walk up to him. So they walk up to him, and we've seen the video, right? They walk up to him. If he had just stood there and said, hey, you guys, am I free to walk away from here? They would have told him, well, no, we think you're selling loosies, right? Fair enough?
Yes, yes.
So, Eric, as you're oh, okay, well, then I have nothing else to say until my lawyer is present.
Wow.
Now
this sounds, see, what you're giving this scenario, it sounds almost too simple.
That's right.
It sounds almost too simple because it sounds like what some people say, well, isn't that going to piss the police off even more and make them more violent towards you to harm you and hurt you?
No, and here's why. What we see is that Eric decided to walk away from them. You see, to leave instead of confronting and saying, am I free to go? That's why you have to ask. If you say nothing and walk away, that's suspicious conduct. It will always be supported.
Really?
But that's why you must confront right then and there and say, wait a minute, guys, am I free to just walk away? And when they say no, well, then I want my lawyer present. And then here's what's going to happen as you're standing there. Two things. One, since it's an infraction, they got to write you a ticket. So you let them write you a ticket. Give you the ticket, you walk on. You appear in court,
They
fight
ask
your
for
case.
your ID during this time. Do you give them your ID?
Oh, sure. Sure. That's the one. Once you're detained, yes, you give them your ID. That's why you have to ask that question.
Oh, once you're detained.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. So let's back up on that because, all right. So, am I free to walk away from here? We just want to see your license, your ID.
Well, now that's a little, because the next question would be, but am I free to leave?
Okay.
You see? And then they'll say no, because we want to ID you. You see? And
so
then,
you don't, okay. All right. So always,
am I free to leave?
Then they have to ask for your ID after that.
Well, they'll say no. And if they say no, give them your ID.
No. Okay. Okay.
So Eric is standing there. They're surrounding him. He's asking them, am I free to go? They're going to say no, right?
Right.
Let's just say they say, no way, you can't go. Then I'm not saying anything until my lawyer is present.
Okay.
Okay? Now you can say something. You could say, aren't those trees over there very pretty? You know, how about those Yankees? You see what I'm saying? You can say something, but you're not saying anything about why they're detaining you, any crime you've been involved in.
Not answering any questions that they ask of you.
There you go. And that's why you have to stay to that, because here's why. Because let's just say you exercise your rights just perfectly, right? So they decide, well, we're going to arrest you and take you to jail. Then you say, okay, great. Let's go for a ride. You go down. They put you in a room. 2 hours later, they come in and they say, all right, you want to talk to me now? What you should say is, I told you I want my lawyer present. But what they're hoping, and what you see on TV, and the improper way to response is, I've been here 2 hours. How come y'all ain't letting me go? What y'all want with me? What you want to know? Why you got me in here? You've said way too much, because now, even though you exercised your rights 2 minutes ago, now you've opened up the door for them to say, well, you want to talk to us now? Oh, I guess we can talk to you now? You have just given that up.
Wow, this is huge.
I'm going to tell you something. Courts will support that. And here's something else people got to know. And this goes to the shows. Let's just say you say, I'm not saying nothing until my lawyer gets here, right? And then they go, well, you know what? You really don't need a lawyer. I mean, really, if you didn't do anything, you don't need a lawyer, right?
Yeah,
and then you go,
if you're not guilty, why do you need a lawyer?
Right. But then you're a sucker. So you go, really? Well, then what do y'all need to know? Once you've done that,
boom,
exercising your rights, you just thrown that right out the window. Because now you have given them permission to ask you more questions. And the courts have said, you better be certain on how you assert your rights. You must assert it. For example, are you going to talk to us? And I'm just silent. Silent doesn't mean I'm not talking to you. They can continue to ask.
Oh, wow. Love that.
And here's where it really gets bad. What if you say, I'm scared, officer. Shouldn't I have my lawyer? That's not asserting your rights according to the courts. You see? Because you didn't make an assertion of your right. You didn't say, I want my lawyer.
Okay.
If you say,
let me play a devil's advocate again.
Please. Yes.
I want my. So you ask me. I want my attorney. So you go ahead and ask me.
Oh, I'm asking. Do you want your lawyer, or I say I want my lawyer?
You say you want your lawyer.
Okay, I want my lawyer present.
Okay, who's your lawyer?
I want my lawyer present.
Who's your lawyer? I'm asking. I'm trying to help you out. You want to get out of this? You want to go home? We've been here all day. Who's your lawyer?
I'm not saying anything until my lawyer is present.
Wow. That's kick ass, Keith. Walk us through that.
That's all you got to say.
Walk us through that, because that sounds crazy in a sense. It's like he's asking, or they're asking, well, who is your lawyer? But you're saying, I want my lawyer. And you keep going back and forth. This is because you're asserting, wow, this is, I just absolutely love this guy.
And here's why that's beautiful.
It's great. So tell us why this is important to have, to continue this banter back and forth. Because this is the setup that most people go through.
That's right. Because the courts, interpreting what officers do as whether it's reasonable or not, have said that if you're wavering at all on getting a lawyer, should I get a lawyer? Don't you think I need a lawyer? If you're asking those kinds of questions, the officer can continue to interrogate. Because you have not affirmatively said, I want my lawyer. Remember in the very beginning, I said those words were magic? The magic is that when those words are uttered clearly and unequivocally, I want my lawyer, the officers must stop interrogating.
Okay, so let's play this out even further, Keith. Love this. This is excellent. I'm sitting here. I'm a 12, 13-year-old black boy.
Got you.
I've watched this show. I downloaded my Know Your Rights brochure or whatever. My mom taught me what to say and all this. Yep, I'm being detained. I'm at the police station, and I'm just going to constantly say, I want my attorney present, but I know I don't have an attorney. I think I can't afford an attorney. Eventually, what happens? What do I say? How do I get the hell out of here? Because that's what most people in their mind are thinking. How do I get the hell out of here? And how do I get out of our lives? So they're saying, well, do you have an attorney? What's the name of your attorney? And you keep saying, I'd like to speak to my attorney.
Exactly.
What has to happen at that point in terms of the detention?
Okay. First thing, you mentioned you're 12 or 13, right? What you've got to know is that even juveniles must assert their constitutional rights. If you say, I want my mama, that's not asserting your constitutional right under the Fifth Amendment. So they don't have to get your mama. You can talk to the individuals who were involved in the New York 7, I think it was, years ago, those young boys who were questioned. They wanted their parents. They brought their parents in. All the parents said was talk to the cops. And then they admitted crimes. So your parents being there is probably the worst thing.
Wow.
You still have to say, I want my lawyer. Now you're 12 and 13. You don't even know a lawyer.
Right.
And that's not important. Under Gideon, back in 1965, we were guaranteed if you have a misdemeanor or a felony crime, accusations against you, you deserve a lawyer. You may not can buy one, but one will be appointed for you. Now, that's not going to happen until you get to court. But to protect your rights until then, you must assert that right to a lawyer. Okay. You don't have to tell them who it is, where they're from, when they're going to get there. That's what I mean by no magic, a lawyer just going to appear. Okay. But the magic is in the words of asserting, I want my lawyer. Not I want my mama, not should I get a lawyer? Don't you think I ought to have a lawyer? Anything like that, the courts are saying, you're free game to continue to interrogate. And cops aren't stupid. What they're going to do is they're going to say, well, gosh, you know what? Let's go get you some potato chips and some Coke. Sit here for a minute and then decide whether you want to talk to me. You see? You get in the room for a couple of hours. You need to use the bathroom. You want to have a smoke. You want to do this. You want to do that. So they're going to be nice to you. And then they're going to ask, well, how come you won't speak to us, right? And they'll go on and keep conversating and creating conversation with you until you start talking about the crime. And now you're not protected. You're not protected at all. Anything you say will be used against you.
So no, ladies and gentlemen, that when you're in this situation, there is no such thing as good cop, bad cop. It is just a bad situation all around. They're not your friend. They don't care about you. They're not trying to get you out of there. They're not trying to assist you or help you. This is what you get suckered into many times, most times. Yes. So let's now use the scenario of Sandra Bland.
Okay.
All right. Sandra Bland is pulled over by this cop. Well, we know what she did because we saw it on camera.
Right.
So let's kind of walk through some of these what happened. Obviously, she didn't say, "Am I free to go?" Obviously.
Right. Right.
And she ended up being detained. So if she had said that, it would have been a completely different scenario. Perhaps.
Right.
Perhaps. But she might have still been detained. So now she's detained, but but before the detention, she's irate.
Right. Right. She's upset. Now, I don't have a problem with a person being upset. But from what I get from at least the in-car camera that we see, okay, the officer comes to the window after pulling her over and says some things to her, and I believe says, "Get out of the car," once she becomes upset. You see? And once he does that, she again begins to engage in conversation with him. Now, at that particular point in time, we don't know why he wants to talk to her, but he does for some reason. And maybe it's just to harass her. But it goes back and forth. At any point, what she should have done is just say, "Wait a minute, officer, am I free to just drive away?" And he would have said, "No, you're engaging, you're talking to me like this," or whatever he would have said. We don't care what the answer is as long as it's no. If the answer is no, then she should have said, "Then I'm not talking to you till my lawyer is present." And then you turn around, you help them cuff you. That's what they're going to do. Because what happens is you get to this huddle up moment. If he doesn't have cause to arrest you, he can't arrest you. If he does arrest you, that's where your lawyer takes in later. That's where we take the case later. And what it really would amount to is, if it was a false arrest or an unjustifiable arrest, what you want to do is document that through complaint process in order to catch that cop next time, or if you want to file your civil suit, now you can do it. But there's nothing there to show you've been combative, that you were wrong, you see?
Right.
Because the real problem is...
Let me be devil's advocate again, Keith. Let's
boy.
play the devil's advocate again. I am a criminal.
Yes.
I have committed crime.
Right.
I have gone to jail before.
Yes.
I might be on probation. I might be a felon.
Yes.
So I'm terrified of the police encounter, because the police encounter then can send me up for life. It might be my third. This might be my third strike.
Exactly.
A part of that is, if I assert my rights now, won't they set me up, and I'm a goner anyway, because I know I'm guilty.
Right.
Like you used the scenario in the beginning of the show. I've got a pound of cocaine on me, or in the car, or whatever. So I'm already guilty. Oh snap! What am I supposed to do? Maybe I need to talk my way out of this.
No, what you do, and that's why this applies whether you're guilty or innocent. Okay, so let's take the situation where I'm walking down the street. I've got cocaine in my pocket, but I also got a gun. Okay. I'll throw that in there. But I'm going to tell you, we're going to break the scenario up to a person on probation or parole and a person who's not.
Okay.
Okay.
Those three things. Okay.
If you are on probation, parole, and you encounter the police and they ask you if you're on probation or parole, you must answer yes. When you do, they will search you and your car and any items you have. They may have a right to do so because, as a condition of being on probation and parole, you have given up that Fourth Amendment right to be free from searches and seizures. And it's clear because anyone, if you have been a criminal, then you know one of the things they said was, one of your conditions of probation parole is that you must submit yourself to search or seizure by any law enforcement officer anytime, day or night, with or without a warrant. Once they give you that condition, that is true. Anytime, day or night, with or without a warrant, an officer can search you. Now, there are some conditions. The courts have said this can't really be just on a hunch or to harass someone. You see? And so because of that, even if you're on probation or parole, you still must tell them, yes, I am. However, I'm not saying anything till my lawyer gets here. So they search me. They find something, right? I assert my Fifth Amendment right. And here's why. Because maybe what you found is not mine. Maybe what you found doesn't belong to me. And maybe I have a defense to that later. But right there on the street corner, at the time of the arrest, while they're booking me, is not the time to try your case. That's where the lawyer comes in. As long as you've protected yourself by saying, well, I'm not consenting to search, but I understand I'm on probation and you're going to do it. But I am definitely not saying anything till my lawyer comes. They don't have any admissions. And the best case scenario is this. What if you're taking a bag, you got a backpack, right? And this has happened before. Someone put something in your backpack. You don't know it. You're on probation, parole. They stop you. You're happy and go lucky. You're like, do what you got to do. And they find cocaine. Now, you know what happens? The first thing when the cops come back and they go, ha, ha, ha. First thing, oh, that ain't mine. If it is mine, it was this, it was that. Now you got a lot to say. The best thing to say is, I'm not saying anything till my lawyer gets here. Say that cocaine, that gun, whatever I have is actually someone else's and they put it in that bag. And I had no knowledge. That's the case that you go and you fight.
It is human nature. It is human nature to say I am innocent. It is human nature to say that's not mine.
Right.
It's guttural. It's almost like a knee-jerk automatic response that you want, and you're saying it really doesn't matter. I want my attorney. It doesn't matter. You know that you didn't do it or even if you did, but you know, and it doesn't matter. In terms of this amendment, the Fifth Amendment, you have to invoke it. If you do not, all bets are off.
Anything you say will be used against you.
Right.
Even you speculating as to whose it is and why it might be there. It's best to say nothing because a lawyer can use that better for your case than you speculating why it got there. Okay, I carry it for protection. You see? I mean, you just admitted that you got the gun and you're a felon. Well, it's easy to prove. I get that case by your statement alone. Now, guess what? Even though you don't say anything, you could be found guilty, sure. But all I'm saying is by invoking your Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights, number one, you decrease the level of hostility. You comply completely with the law. Cops don't get hurt. You don't get hurt. Nobody gets hurt. The battle is in the legal courtroom where it should be over are you guilty or not? Did they have cause to stop you? Did they have cause to search you? And that's where the battle should be, not on the street corner, not in the cop car.
What about the position that you did not you resisted arrest, you did not comply with the police, you did not help the police? Let's look at Freddie Gray.
Gotcha.
One of the things that happens that came out in the national story was that nobody wants to talk to the police, nobody wants to help the police, and if you don't talk and help the police, you can't help the community. Well, probably many of those people who are in that community have some level of criminal activity, which is fine, but they're afraid to talk to the police because of the incrimination and because they don't know their rights. But not talking to the police and doing what you are suggesting to do, which is to assert your rights, can that be construed as not being compliant and resisting?
Quick answer is no, not at all. What a non-compliance with a peace officer really means and what it requires in terms of conduct is that you didn't comply with their orders. And that would be this: get in the police car. You see, stop. You comply. Everything I have said here says when they ask you to stop, you stop. It's just you ask them, am I free to go? That's all. So that you now can invoke that Fourth Amendment right. Because if an officer says stop, I don't know what he means. I don't know if he's saying, hey, stop, you're about to step off the curb. You see what I'm saying? I mean, maybe he's, hey,
maybe he's trying to save your damn life. Yeah, okay.
Maybe he's trying to save your life.
Let's see.
So all I'm saying is when he says stop and then comes at you to talk to you, and it's not a consensual encounter, I didn't call him. Look, the rule is if I called the cops out, talk to them all day.
Okay.
If I didn't call them and they're coming to me, then they believe I'm either a witness or a suspect.
Okay.
And I'll tell you right now, there is never against the law to not stop a crime, to fail to assist in a, in reporting a crime. We don't.
So let's talk about that. So what
happens
happens if you call the police? Right? You call the police. The police come down. We saw that scene with the kids at the pool.
Yeah.
And somebody called the police. And then all of a sudden, the police are there completely harassing the children and beating them up and what have you. What happens when you call the police? How you call them, but then it turns bad for you. What do you do when you suspect that it's turning bad for you and you were the one who initiated contact?
A perfect example, because the key word was it's turning bad for you. Once you see that the officers are there and are focusing on you, now you can still utilize the same thing. Officer, am I free to go? Now the officer will say, well, you called us out. But at that point, the officer is now what? Suspecting you of something after they get there. So remember, when you say I'm free to go, what it is to do is to make the officer now articulate what it is they suspect. So they're going to say, well, of course you're free to go. You called us out here. I don't think you did a crime. I'm just trying to investigate.
What if they're in your house?
Free to go?
What if they're in your house? Officer, am I free to go? You're in your damn house. It's like, okay, what are you? Well, are you asking them to leave? Are you going to get out and start getting violent and all of that? Those are things that you're not supposed to do.
No, you just say, officer, will you please leave?
Okay.
Will you please leave?
Okay. Okay.
You see, you've called them into the situation.
Wow.
But it has now turned to where you are now the suspect.
Okay.
Right? Officers, please leave. And then guess what their response might be? Well, no, we suspect you of doing something. And you're thinking my Fourth and my Fifth Amendment right. All right, officer, am I free to go? No. All right, then I'm not saying anything till my lawyer comes. And then you leave it at that. You let them do what they're going to do. Here's something. Here's a logical thing for my people, for everybody out there, citizens. Understand, look, when the cops come to encounter you, pull you over, stop you, they have far more information than you do. They know what they're doing. Even if it's just pure harassment, they know that you don't. Right? So since a person has more knowledge than me, I am not prepared at that point to confront whatever they know because I can't read their mind. So the only thing I can do is use the law, the Fourth and Fifth Amendment, in order to combat the situation so that I can at least preserve my rights. And why is that important? Because it can save my life if I behave that way. I have not put up a resistance. I merely asserted my rights. Just because I say I don't want to talk to you, I haven't resisted you. You see, you're still, I'm telling you, tell them to cuff you. Come on, let's go. You see what I'm saying? Because all you're doing is putting them to the fire now of justifying what they did. That's it. So you got to inconvenience for a few hours. They're going to talk to you, tease you. They're going to play with you. You've got to be strong-minded at that point to know I have to just sit here, shut up. I should be listening more than talking. And that's how I'm going to handle this. Because once I get out, I will come to my lawyer and I will say, this is what occurred. And the report should reflect that. And then if there was no justification to stop me, and they did find something in my pocket later, or they go somewhere and find something that they're going to charge me with, You do what's called a motion to suppress, which is based on that the cop's behavior was unreasonable under the Fourth Amendment. And if a judge rules that their behavior was unreasonable, the evidence can't be used against you.
Mm.
And that's how that works. That's what I mean by on the street corner, in the cop car. That's not where you're fighting your case.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You're fighting your case when you get your lawyer appointed. Even if you're broke,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to get your lawyer appointed. And that's where the legal process begins.
So here, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Finish your statement.
And it goes back to our major theme of you're not being combative. You're not doing anything wrong. You are merely asserting your rights.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Remember, the officers are going to tell you if they're really justified in arresting you. They're going to tell you you have a right to talk to a lawyer. Well, if not, one will be provided for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
All you're doing is saying, "I think I want to exercise that right."
Right. Right.
That's it.
Okay.
The same one you're giving me a chance to do. I'm just telling you, I'm down with that.
Right.
See?
Right.
Yeah, bring me my lawyer.
Right. Bring it on. Oh, this is great. All right, Keith.
You see how it's so simple, and it diffuses the conversation. And I'll tell you, look, law enforcement, they know this. They're not stupid in terms of the Fourth and Fifth Amendment rights. They know this stuff. So they understand what you're doing. And they may try to slip you up, the bad guy, you see? That's why you have to be steadfast in saying, am I free to go? Am I repeating it? And I want my lawyer. I told you, I want my lawyer. And they may even give you stuff like, wow, you're going to sit in jail. You're going to do this. You're going to do that. Okay. Small price to pay for me to exercise my rights. And it's so important. Here's the bottom line. We, as a country, we've been sending individuals overseas saying that what they're doing is preserving our rights under the Constitution, right? How many dead boys and girls do we have who are fighting to protect our Constitution? So my point is, protect yourself under that same Constitution that everybody's dying for. You might as well. What do you got to lose? And aren't you the good American for doing so? Because we are a nation of laws. We don't do anything unless the law says we can or can't. So by exercising your rights today, you make a better future tomorrow. In fact, you may live through tomorrow because you've exercised your rights.
Absolutely. That being said, what I want to do is I want to have you come back because there's so much more.
Yeah.
that I want to talk about. We want to talk about the Sixth Amendment when we come back, and that process. You know, how to complain on cops and what that does.
Right.
And because there were things you were telling me I didn't even know was possible. So we're gonna continue on to that. What I want to do right now, Keith, is how can people get this brochure? What is your web address? How can people contact you? And how can people know their right, get access to Know Your Rights?
Okay. If the pamphlet's not there, we will put it there. But my website is kjscriminaldefense.com. So it's my initials, kjscriminaldefense.com.
Fantastic.
And you should be able to download the pamphlet. If you don't have it, I'll put it there so that it is there for individuals to download. That's probably the easiest way than to try to get me to mail it or do it to anyone, responding by email. I believe my book is there, Know Your Rights, which is just a more comprehensive way of discussing how to navigate yourself through the criminal justice system. One of the things that's so important is that people got to understand that I really am advocating for putting myself out of business. Really. I wish that I did not have to do what I do in terms of criminal defense. And part of the radical way of doing that is I do want to teach people how to at least navigate themselves through this system that they're going to face, whether they like it or not. Because a lot of times we don't volunteer for a crime. right? But not, there aren't people knocking on the door to jail going, you know what, I committed a crime. How about taking me in? Right? That's not the way this works. Somebody comes out, they accuse you of something. And here's the most important thing. You can get accused of something like attempted murder, right? You get into a fight and somebody dies, or you almost kill someone, right? Just because we call that and you're charged with attempted murder, do you realize one of the greatest tenets of this country is that you are innocent till proven guilty?
So that actually exists. I mean, because we kind of look at that as a joke.
Yes. That's why we have a jury system. That is why our system even exists compared to any other system in the world, is that you are innocent until proven guilty. And the state has a burden of doing that beyond a reasonable doubt. Meaning, if there's some reasonable conclusion that can be drawn from the evidence that points to innocence, there is a reasonable conclusion that can be pointing to guilt, you've got to go with the one for innocence. You must. So our system is built for you to fight your case in the system. And that's all that I'm saying. That's why it applies if you're innocent, if you're guilty, if you got something, you don't got something. White, black, large, small. It doesn't matter who you are. These are laws that are provided to anyone who's a U.S. citizen and not. Frankly, think about the Guantanamo issue, right?
Sure.
They're not our citizens of the United States, but what's the big holdup? Treating them to the justice that they deserve because they're being tried here. That's why you hear the controversies, is because why should we provide them with Fifth Amendment rights and Sixth Amendment rights and things like that?
Last question.
Because that's our system.
Last question of today, and that is, how are cops responding to you doing this work?
In the beginning, I think cops are apprehensive to listening to what I have to say. But I will tell you,
I would assume they think you're making their job harder.
Exactly. Yeah. The criticism is, well, if you're not telling people to cooperate, right? Now, cooperation is a good thing, but your kids don't cooperate with you. Now, what do you do with them? Do you jail them? No. So cooperation is not a requirement in our society. It just isn't. So officers believe that I'm telling them don't cooperate. But what I'm really telling them is that, officers, I'm teaching people how to deal with you so you do not have to beat them. You do not have to abuse them. You don't have to use force. They're going to comply. They're just exercising their rights that you're going to tell them they have eventually. So everybody gets along. You think I did a crime? Okay, I'm willing to go. But I'm not saying anything to my lawyer.
Nice.
I mean, it makes it easy. The officers are not confused as to what's happening. And you mentioned something like their frustration, their anger, you see?
Well, this puts the power back into the person. It puts the power back into the people, and not necessarily law enforcement. And that, I can see where that can be very frustrating to them, you know, especially when they're beefed up and, you know, ready to take down, you know, one of us.
But here's the thing, though. We always got to remember, think about this. The cops are not the ones who prosecute. The cops are not the jury. They're not the judge. We have different branches of power for that reason, right? Separation of powers, right? That's why the legislature makes the laws. The cops enforce the law. They do two different jobs. So the cop's job is arrest the person, put them in jail. That's it. They don't judge you're guilty, innocent, or anything. Their job is gather the evidence, gather the information. Because look, I'm cognizant of this situation. Let's say you're arrested, you exercise your rights, right? Now, cops learn and determine you're not the suspect. You're not the person. What do you think they're going to do? They're going to let you go. The system has worked. You have protected yourself, the cops have done their job, and everybody goes home. All I'm saying is everyone needs to know their own rights, how to exercise them, because that's the key, and then everyone goes home.
You know, the other thing that I think that needs to and I know I lied to you and said that was the last question, but it wasn't. Because this topic is just too damn good, ladies and gentlemen. It's too powerful. It's too necessary to have this conversation. It really is. The thing that's coming up for me, and that is this. We know that there are cops who know that we don't know our rights, and they prey on those people who do not know their rights. And by knowing your rights and doing exactly what you've just outlined, causes them to have to step up and do better paperwork, better investigation, and to be really truly a cop. So really, what this does is it makes and forces, in an oxymoronic way, a better police force.
Exactly. And everyone
because
lives.
If everybody knows their rights and invoke those rights, it changes how the police is going to react and respond to you.
That's true.
In a situation.
That's true. And I'll tell you something. Let's talk about that Sixth Amendment right to counsel. Just a few
let's talk
comments.
about it. Let's talk about it.
All right. Gideon gives you the right to have a lawyer, but you don't get to select one unless you pay for him. Okay? So you don't get your own personal lawyer unless you pay for him. Mm-hmm. But the lawyer you get, we call them public defenders. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to tell you right now, a lot of people hate public defenders. They don't believe, number one, that they're even lawyers. Mm-hmm. But they're all lawyers. They know what to do. There are several of them, many of them, who are great lawyers, and they do their job. Now, what you must do as the client is just like in any other situation. You go to a hairdresser, you don't just let the hairdresser do what the hairdresser wants to do, right? You kind of give them an idea of what you want to see, mm-hmm. and you hope that they will give you what you want to see. Same way with a lawyer. You go to a lawyer, you're there to provide the facts to the lawyer as to what you would like to see, what has occurred, and all of that. And the lawyer's job is to analyze it under the law, what you can do. And here's what I mean. Let's just say they're charging you with felony grand theft, okay? Felony. They charge it as a felony. Well, in California, it better be a value of $950 or more. So what if the value is $800? Right? Now you go to the lawyer. If the lawyer tells you to plead to the felony and you do so, that is not a good situation because it should have been a misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, so your lawyer's job is to recognize that should be a misdemeanor and fight for your misdemeanor. Not necessarily that you're not guilty, because you're guilty, but you're guilty of the misdemeanor. Mm-hmm. Now, what does that mean? Well, it means a lot. It means county jail versus prison. It means 50 days versus a year. Mm-hmm. It can mean a lot. And that's what the lawyer's job is. It's not necessarily to beat every case, but if you give them ammunition, it helps them. If you don't give them a statement, it helps them. Mm-hmm. So no matter who you get, you're going to help them. And your job is keep the lawyer in line. Ask questions. Ask to see the law. Ask what is going on here. How do I interpret this fact? Can I see the police report? You've got to be proactive with that lawyer like you would a person doing your hair. What kind of product are you using? Are you going to use this process or that process because my hair gets bad? You see, you're going to care about what they're doing. So you just have to care. You can't just discount a lawyer and say, he's an asshole, he's this, he's that. He ain't trying to help me. No, you help them. Help you. You see that phrase of help me, help you.
I love this.
That's how you deal with your lawyer. You see, no matter who you get, you sit down, you talk to them face to face. You show. Here's one thing I'll tell you: public defenders hate it because they think the clients don't care. You see, they think clients don't care. Just give me a deal, anything. I don't care. No, you show the lawyer you care. You show up on time. You go to appointments. You see what I mean? You hold them to task. And they'll see that you care about your case. So when it comes to lawyers, you may not get one of your choice, but you will get one. And there are ways of getting rid of the lawyer who gets appointed to you. That's another whole subject.
Yes, it
there
is.
are ways of doing that.
Wow.
So it's not impossible to deal with your lawyer. And that's a very important thing. Now, one thing we got to talk about is the complaint process real quick.
Okay.
I just want to run through because a lot of people say, well, what about that bad cop? What about the cop who keeps coming over? He keeps harassing me. He keeps arresting people. And then they, there's no charges, stuff like that. All right. As a citizen,
Eric Gardner did that because he says, you guys are always bothering me. You're always picking on me.
That's right.
Yeah.
Now, within every department, there are complaint forms that you probably can get online, and you can do it here in Sacramento with the sheriff, the police. And most jurisdictions, it's going to be sheriff, police, or highway patrol who are going to mess with you, no matter where you're at, whichever county. Each of them usually have a process, a form that you can download to make a complaint. So as a citizen, if I feel a cop did me wrong, and this is why I say you listen more than talk when you're in a situation, because I'm listening for the names of individuals. I want to see what they're doing. Now, I don't want to be yelling at them for doing what they're doing. I just want to be able to observe what they're doing. Because when it comes time to complain, I then have to put that information on that form and submit it to that department. It doesn't end there. Don't think they're just going to, oh, wow, what a complaint. Let's just do this. You have to follow up. You have to follow up with a phone call, another letter. Always document that you're following up. And you're only following up saying, I want a disposition. Tell me whether you're going to do something or not. And what, if anything, you're going to do. If they tell you we're doing nothing, that still doesn't mean the complaint is dead. Because there are certain agencies like Urban League, NAACP, or just local police watchdog groups, public defender offices who may want that complaint that you've made, because in a subsequent criminal case, there's a motion called a Pitchess motion. That's the name of the person's name, okay? In that motion, you're asking for police records of their wrongdoing. What did they do in the past? Are they calling people nigger all the time? Are they beating people up all the time? When you can make that assertion, and it's called making a prima facie case, hey, the cops called everybody nigger in this case. So we want to see how many complaints have been made against him for doing that. If there is a database, if there is records in his file of that occurring, you can get access to it. And so now you can deal with the officer's credibility for doing so in the current criminal case that's going on. It may not have helped you a year ago, but it may help that person a year from now when that same cop is doing the same thing.
Wow.
Now you bring it to the forefront. Now there's issues over his employment, you see, and whether he should stay there. Now, if that person wants to be a sergeant, a lieutenant, a captain, you've got some ammunition to say no. So it's all a matter of documenting. Most of the time, people always got a complaint, but they never follow through. They never see it through. Demand an answer in writing, something to get from them. And then you don't just forget it. You got to turn it over. Hold on to it. Give it to the PD's office. And this is my call to PD's offices, NAACP, groups like that who can keep such things so that we as lawyers can use them later. And it happens all the time. Watch your news for the next cop who gets arrested for something. What's going to happen in the legal community, what we lawyers do, is if we hear that, and that officer worked on a case that I had 2 months ago, and I know he's now under arrest, and he's the chief officer who's going to testify in my case, I move my case very quickly because they can't call him as a witness now. So it actually helps you when that cop is bad in the future, even for past conduct. Happens all the time. They got to reverse cases. They got to pull things back. Anything that cop has been working on. We see that there was a lab problem in California, a laboratory that was faking a lot of things and stuff. Everything they worked on became skeptical.
Wow.
So people are caught. It's just you got to be diligent at catching them. You may not catch them today, but what happens today could be very relevant tomorrow.
It's also a community and a collective effort as well. It's like each one plays a role.
Exactly.
So you might be helping your neighbor in another county, in another city, and not know it, but collectively, this is what we need to do to basically change the game. And what I liked about our conversation that we had is that you know, we can really put a dent in this relationship between the police and the community, and really change the relationship by doing what we're doing. This changes the game because it's putting the power back to the people.
Exactly. And we talked a lot about my crazy theory of, what if there are no calls from certain neighborhoods, black neighborhoods, you want to call it. What if there's no crime in 1 month? They just stop committing crimes in 1 month. No calls out. What would happen? How many cops would get laid off? How many meetings would be had as to why are we even in the neighborhood when there are no calls coming? And it's a fantasy, but I call that out to people. I say, you know what? If you want to take somebody down, economically is a very viable way of doing it. If there's nothing for them to do, how can they operate?
Exactly. Unbelievable.
So, and it's an amazing thing because I look at it as a fantasy, but then I go, but that's not too crazy, you know, to really say, hey, wait a minute. What if you just stopped with the little things that they come out for, right? They got to keep coming out. What if you just stopped in one neighborhood for a month? What's going to happen? And let's see the economic impact of that. So it's, you know, but
it's almost like,
nothing.
It's almost like going on a strike against crime. It's going on a strike against
crime.
Right?
Right. We do not like the way you're enforcing it. Therefore, we're going to change our narrative from our end.
So it's, again, putting the power back into the people and not
into the people. Exactly.
That's great.
Because we're a nation of laws. Laws have worked against us as black people. They've worked. The laws of this country have said we can't be, we can't do. Then they changed. Now you hear Bruce Hornsby's song, the law don't change another's mind, when all they see at the hiring time is the line on the color bar. As you see, yeah, we're a nation of laws, but even though the laws changed, people's minds didn't change. And we feel that today. We wonder, how could people be racist? How could people have opinions, want to fly the Confederate flag? That's because you changed the law, but you didn't change their mind. So all we have is the law. We can't focus on changing their mind. What we can focus on is the law. And as long as we comply with it, we force others to comply with it. As long as we comply with it, we allow the criminal justice system, the best part of it, to operate and hold them to their task of proving a crime, proving a cause to stop. And all I care about is Gardner, Brown, and any of my brothers out there. You've got to change your narrative. You've got to change how you look at it. There is no way in the world that any words you give to an officer is useful except, am I free to leave and I want my lawyer. Anything else I say is not useful. And you've got to know that. And once you do, I don't care what you're doing. We shooting dice on the corner, you know, and the cops walk up. Everyone's, hello, officer, are we free to leave? Right? Officer says, hell no, I'm getting you guys for a dice game. Okay. Then we're not saying nothing till our lawyer comes. Instead of, hey, but I was winning in the dice game. Hey, but it wasn't illegal. How's the dice game illegal? Why you fighting your case on the corner? If it is illegal, you have not admitted to illegal conduct. You just saw me standing here with dice.
I really respect this. I really respect this because, as you said, don't fight it on the street corner. Fight it on the back end. So if they're going to set you up in the wash, control. At least you can control the rents. Exactly.
That no one ever wins fighting on the street corner. What person said, you know what? Me and the cop talked about it, and he decided not to.
I've never heard that one before. Yeah, that's. That's not funny, ladies and gentlemen. I apologize, but damn, he brought up a good point.
No,
you ain't never heard that conversation in the barbershop.
Right.
Saying, you know, that's true. What does Dr. Phil say? How is that working for you? Yeah, that didn't work out well at all. Yeah, that has never happened. So this is a good point. This is a very good point. Very good
That's
stuff.
why I say, and I'm not being, that's why I preach what I preach.
Yeah.
Because I know, look, you're not going to win that game out on a corner.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, all you're going to do is incriminate yourself even further.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And maybe be abusive. Maybe get them angry enough to where all you got to do is swipe your arm away from the cop, and all of a sudden, 18 are on you.
Right. Or you're dead.
Or you're dead.
Yeah.
They thought you were going for a cell phone, and oops, I thought it was a gun.
Exactly.
Or let's talk about our boy at the BART station. He's already in cuffs.
Right.
The cop just makes a mistake, right?
Right. That's right.
But why would he even be going for a gun?
Right.
Or anything when the guy is already wrapped up?
Mm-hmm.
So when we start saying, cops, you need to change, that's the wrong way to look at it. We need to change how we behave, you see? And taking that aggression away from them.
Mm-hmm. Take back our power, because we automatically give them the power.
Exactly.
When we start to argue and fuss and all and get emotional, we give them the power. Take back that power and learn to control your emotions, and learn to and then learn your rights, know your rights. I love it. I love it. Well, give us the website again, Keith, how they can get in contact with you.
Yes. KJScriminaldefense.com.
KJScriminaldefense.com, ladies and gentlemen. Yes. This has been incredible. Of course, you know Keith is coming back. We're going to have him on as a regular, because this is a conversation that we can have again and again. And I know we're going to get a ton of questions and comments. Please send them all. Share this with everybody you know, especially the melanated one. But everybody you know, this video needs to be shared. This thing needs to go viral. And I mean that on a real tip, to save our lives and to save our young people's lives. Keith, I can't thank you enough, man, for coming in.
My pleasure.
I appreciate you, brother.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here.
All right. Take care, everybody. We'll see you next time on the Philippe Matthews Show. Stick around with me, Keith, in the green room as we sign off.